Like on the rock.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like Jesus. Yeah, I think that's like it's. Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about. Like, it's like if you build your house on sand, and then the wind and storm, the flood, the rain, everything's gonna wash it away. But if it's built on solid rock foundation, then when the storm comes, it'll it'll stand.
Also, all those things that were named, each of them have different value. At its core, it's like gold is worth more than silver, silver more than wood, and wood more than straw, and all that too. So I feel like that applies in the sense of this, what you're trying to get at as what value you place on your walk with Christ.
What amazed me was still like the last verse. It says, "If it is burned up, the builder will suffer loss, but will yet still be saved." God still loves us. That even if we choose to not, follow His foundation and choose to go off in our own separate ways, that He will still. All that stuff is going to be tried. We'll see it for what it is, but He'll still allow us, to allow us into heaven, into heaven with Him. And it's like, I wouldn't want to live a life like that, because it's like, what's the point? God has done so much for you. He didn't do all this just so you can be saved and just stop right there. You're supposed to continue like adding value to that, and there's works to be done. Depending on the condition of our heart. In the study Bible, it kind of breaks it down. It pretty much hit everything you guys had said. Gold, those works that are valuable, enduring, and the wood and everything else is basically worthless. And by God's grace, we believe that obviously many will become Christians. But as students of Christ, we believe that there's a difference between being a strong and weak Christian. Or, you can call them part-time or full-time Christian. So what do you think is the difference between the two? What does that look like in somebody's life?
I've never heard it like that. Part-time or full-time. I've never heard it like that. I'm sorry, Leandro, you were going to say something?
Oh, yeah. Somebody who just, like, they base their Christian life on, like, just going to services and stuff, and they feel like if they're going to, I'm not trying to, like, because I'm kind of thinking of a certain person, like,
you said.
but like they base their Christian life on like how much they're going to church or something like that. And it's not really like about them really changing and really trying to be renewed and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Christianity is not about like going to church every week, or even coming to this Bible study, or even going to every Bible study this week. It's about, I feel like it's the real test of like what a Christian is, what you do behind closed doors. Like what, if we were to look at your life like completely lit up, would it look the same when you're by yourself or away from us as it would right here?
This is not a complete thought, but when you say part-time versus full-time, maybe think about actual working. And when you have a part-time job, oftentimes you have to clock in, you have to clock out. So you kind of, you're guarding, like you're watching your hours, like I'm just say going to church, you're doing this, you're checking off on a checklist or something. When you're working full-time, like you have benefits, you're typically exempt, you don't have to worry about clocking in and clocking out. You're kind of immersed in that thing, and you get to reach the fullness of being in a specific institution. But it's different when you're part-time. You don't have the benefits. You're thinking about all these things. When I think about Christianity, kind of going off that part-time, full-time thing, it's like kind of being in it, but you're not fully immersed in it. You don't have the benefits that come with being fully in. And that's kind of how it is with a part-time Christian. They don't have everything that comes with really going all in Christ, having that peace, having that joy, benefits that come with it. but they're more so just throwing it on like an accessory, like a chair on top of their life. Part-time.
That's really good. That's really good. Yeah. It's not about the quantity. It's like the quality of your walk. Anybody else? We can go ahead and go to the next scripture. 2 Timothy 2, verses 20 to 22. Want to volunteer to read that? You can just go ahead and start reading.
In a large house, there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for special purposes, and some for common use. Those who cleanse themselves from the latter will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work. Flee the evil desires of your youth, and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who can call on the Lord out of a pure heart. Amen.
So we're supposed to only go to 21 and all that, but what do you guys think that means when it says special purposes for the master to do any good work?
For me, that just means that God has a specific plan for everybody, and it kind of also consoles. I feel like it can console people, where it's like when you're starting to grow in your faith, your relationship with Christ. Sometimes you see other people who seem like they're so much farther ahead that you might become discouraged about where you are, in particular, like compared to them. But there's a purpose for everybody. There's a specific purpose for everybody who knows Christ and who worships Christ in truth. So it's like, just because somebody might be doing all these great things doesn't mean that God doesn't have a purpose for you to accomplish. And sometimes I feel like we as Christians get discouraged by what other people are doing for the ministry or for God. So it's like, just know that you have a purpose. Even if you're the least of your peers or of your ministry or whoever, God still has a purpose for you that like nobody else but you can accomplish for him.
I'm interested in verse 21 when it says, those who cleanse themselves from the latter will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work.
That's the second part of the question. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Well, I'm just interested because like Alex had a good point, and that makes sense. But then I'm like curious about like it says those who cleanse themselves from the latter. So it's like insinuating that the articles made of wood and clay are like a former or like a not saved person.
So
I had that question too. I was like, doesn't matter.
I thought it was talking about the church in the whole, like there's like everyone in the house is the church, and those who separate themselves are the ones who almost like in the last chapter was saying how there's like different articles, different levels. I thought it was like different levels of Christians in this one as well for special purposes. And I wrote that like instruments create noise and draw attention, to the person who's using them. So God will not use you if your character doesn't match his. Like you can be a Christian, you can be saved, but your character may not all the way be matched up with God. So God won't use you to do a special purpose.
Yeah.
You can there's like different levels to it, and that's what I took from it.
This is a good example. So imagine you were growing up, your mom or your parents had fine china or some like special plates, right? And then also for the day-to-day kind of companies you don't care about, you got plastic plates, plastic food. This is the same kind of case when it's talking about special purposes. When do you draw the fine china? When do you draw out the good plate, so to speak? Is when there's some kind of special, you have people over, you have something going on. But you take out the plastic plates every single day, or you don't really care too much about it. In the same regard, this is the same thing. Like, God has special work that He wants to do with special people, and the ones that take that effort to, like, it's good that you put the last verse on there, to flee these things and really seek to be holy and set themselves apart. God can reserve you for those bigger things. It's not saying that you can't do work. Right. The plastic plates do have a place, the wooden plate have a place, but they're not going to be able to reach their full potential in Christ because they haven't desired to make themselves or desire to be holy and to set themselves apart. So that quote helps me kind of understand this verse here.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah, it did. I never really got it either. Like, yeah, so that just helped me.
Yeah, I used to think it was talking about like saved and unsaved people. Yeah. Like this unsaved people have a purpose. I was like, why is he talking about them? But yeah, like just reiterating what he was saying. So the ones that are cleansed and being Christ-like, they're the ones who sacrifice their desires and lusts and put them, set themselves apart so they can be used for more noble and glorious deeds. Any other thought? It's open.
Is this kind of like a reference to also like with Moses' time and Pharaoh? Mm-hmm. Is it kind of like, how he used Pharaoh, although Pharaoh was, killing off people and doing all this other stuff, but he used that to like show his am I thinking about this?
Yeah, I think you're thinking about it.
Just kidding.
Yeah, the large house is like the believers, the church.
Oh, okay.
The church of Christ. Yeah. And we're the different articles, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, I think it's interesting that we still ended up reading 22 because that lined up the top verse, the top portion.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how you would be set apart and cleanse yourself.
Yeah, it reminds me of another scripture that says, I think it's close to this, but it says who are you as clay? Like basically the potter, has all these like different clay pieces. They each do different things. And he's like, who are you, being the clay, basically telling God like, no, like I don't want to be a spoon, Yeah. So I feel like it is kind of related to this. Like I actually just read the scripture today, and I understand like definitely it's talking about believers, but I feel like it could also be used for the world. I saw it like as like the whole world, when I first read it, like kind of like saying basically that the believers were like the gold and silver, and then the unbelievers are wood and clay. But they can still, like basically even the wood and clay still has, like kind of what you were talking about, like with Pharaoh. Pharaoh wasn't saved, and he probably didn't get saved, but he still had a purpose. And so the wood and clay still has a purpose, and they may never even like become saved, but they still have a purpose, like in the whole large house, the whole world, Yeah. But it's just like I think encouraging us that no matter like where we feel we are, like if we feel like I feel like gold and silver could be like some pastor or some great man of God that we think of, and then like we could think we're like wood and clay, and that we don't like really do anything, but God is, saying that if you pursue righteousness and you cleanse yourself from the latter, which is like saying like you were once dirty, but if you cleanse yourself for like you basically ladder, you know, like later, like basically now until we go, you know, to Christ. So like if we, you know, step into that now, we can basically be just like the gold and silver, or whatever God's called us.
Yeah, I even add to that by saying there's even cases where a lowly believer that's not quote unquote doing any big ministry can be gold and silver in God's eyes, but the pastor that has a mega church and has all this stuff can be gold and clay.
That's true.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you're doing or what your ministry is, but it's the posture of your heart.
Yeah.
And if that person has a low and humble spirit, that's more like God than the pastor that's doing so much ministry. So I feel like it's a call not just to curb your desires and to rid yourself of the sin that tries to plague us, but it's also to lower yourself to a position like Christ. So the Bible says that even though he was in the position of God, right, the image of God, or whatever, he lowered himself and he became nothing. Right? And it's like for us that, you know, we can be all these great things to God. We can be millionaires, we can be politicians, we can be pastors, bishops, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we can't get on our knees and say, Lord, I'm broken, and I need you, and I want to be filled with your presence. Even if that's in a crowd of 1,000, or me and the Father by myself. Those are the ones that can really do God's special purposes because they don't change regardless of where they're at or what they're doing.
That's true.
I'm glad you had 22 up too, because like even like Dante was saying at the end, it says, along with those who call out to the Lord with a pure heart. Because I feel like that's the big, like if this was my Bible, I like that verse. Because like
it's fun though. It's highlighted in my Bible.
Because like people, you see like the scenario that is being used, and people focus on that, but we always have to remember to read the part that shows what we have to do. Read what shows our actions that we need to take after reading. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what you can actually do. That's how you live the word. If you pursue to do verse 22, and we can't forget that part.
I see like 22. It says like flee the evil desires of youth, pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. I think it like really goes back to the other verse of like if we're thinking about like what are we building our foundation on. So like a lot of times we think like being a Christian like it's like, and it is us, but it's like us and then the help of our family. Like I think that's why it says like along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart, like flee the evil desires and pursue all these things along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. So it's like you can't build up yourself in self-righteousness. Like you can't like claim to be this like amazing Christian and like do all these things because you're gonna fall because God, like He created the church to be a body. Like He created us to work together, to help each other. It's just like we have Bible study tonight. Just like Students for Christ is like a family, and we hold each other accountable. I mean, you all are like roommates, pretty much, and you have like that accountability and that encouragement, and just like that extra push. I feel like we can read this and think like, oh, I need to do this better. I need to stop doing this, and like I need to like, get in the Word more and pray, which is like good, but like to remember not to like isolate yourself. Yeah. And the fact that we are like a body and we're supposed to be together and help each other and pray for one another. You were playing this song like piano music, and it had like Bible verses like going on the screen, and there was one, and it said like the prayer of a righteous man like availeth. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it was just making me think like how like we need like the prayer and support like of our church or like of our coverings of other people as like a part of helping us build like that foundation. And we're not just building on personal foundations, we're building like a foundation for the next generation and like all these things in our families and stuff.
It's not about us, yeah. Also, like I like this verse especially because I don't know, sometimes I feel like when we get saved, I can't say we, but people think like everything's on like a same playing field, like there's nothing else to aspire to, like there's more to look forward to, like we all get like different crowns when we go to heaven, depending on what we did here on earth. So it encourages me, me personally, to like, want to do more, not just for that, but I lost my train of thought. Basically, I was saying it encourages me, because there's, I don't know, I think it's awesome to be used by God in a mighty way, different than whatever He has called you to do. Everyone has their own calling, but I think it's just something to look forward to and something to really work towards, because we're not going to just meet it in like one day or a week or whatever, it's just something to continue to work on with yourself. So it really encourages me, and I hope it encourages you guys as well.
Yeah, and going off that, like when I read this too, like the part that really hit me was like the special purposes made holy, useful for the master, and prepared to do any good work.
Yeah.
So it's kind of saying like, there's many people that they're not walking in their special purpose. They're not walking in holiness. They're not walking useful. They're not useful for the Lord right now. And they may be prepared for good works. Like everyone can do good works, right? There's Satanists that do good works. They give money to the poor, right? But it says any good work. That's powerful. So I don't know, they just really hit me hard. Like basically when you come into this wash clean, place, like you can basically do everything God has called you to do. And like what you were saying, Dante, like it's not just about, being the pastor, but it's like that daily lifestyle, whatever God has called you that day, without any like, feeling like, oh, I can't pray for that person because like I'm afraid like they're not going to be healed, or something. Like you'll be walking in every good work.
And also to add to what you guys were saying, there's one thing that I think we Christians lose sight of, is like even when we're walking in the purpose that God has for us, we tend to lose. We tend to like forget that there's always something new that God wants us to do, like how you were saying, because it's like if God didn't have anything else for you to do, He wouldn't have you be like He wouldn't make you be here. Right. Like, He'll call you to Him, right? It's like, and I feel like that's a prayer that we as Christians always have to pray. Is that like every day is that for God to show us our purpose for that day. Because it's like if your whole purpose, or if you think that your whole purpose of why God brought you to this earth is to bring one soul to Christ, right? And you've done that, but you're still alive. That shows you that God wants you to do more. There's more that God wants you to do. Don't just focus on that one person that you brought to Him and be like, that's it. Like, just give up on that, right? Like every day that God has you on earth and gives you bread to live, there's something going on.
Oh, that's so good.
So,
that's
Christians,
good.
That's something that we should really seek out each and every minute of our lives to try to glorify.
That's good, bro. That's one last thing. Like, just you saying that, like, I feel like I always like look to the future. I'm like, like God.